Welcome to Forbes Newsroom. Joining me now is Zach Everson, a staff writer here at Forbes. Zach, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year, Brittany.
Happy New Year to you too. The 118th Congress convened on Tuesday, and I want to talk about the lawmakers' paychecks. What do their salaries look like?
Well, for most members of Congress and senators, it is $174,000 a year. It goes up if they hold a leadership position, in which case it's $193,000. And then Speaker of the House, not that I think anybody would really want that job after what we've seen this week, Speaker of the House gets paid $223,000.
And do senators and members of the House receive the same salary if you're just a regular lawmaker?
Yes. This is one of the few areas where they seem to have equal compensation. A lot of times, in terms of ethics rules and whether in book deals and things like that, they have different rules. But for salary, it is $174,000, and it's been that way since 2009. You know, they do have the option of raising their own salaries, but fear of the voter box has kept them from doing that for quite some time.
Why don't they do that? Can you elaborate?
Sure. Nothing. There's this whole anti-Washington sentiment out there, and nothing sounds worse than some congressperson who comes back to their district and find out he raised his salary. It's just not going to be well received, and as a result, they haven't gotten a pay raise, which honestly is probably unfortunate. I think if lawmakers were paid a little bit more, we'd find less of the revolving door problem in DC.
Do you think that they will ever adjust this for inflation, or it's going to stay this way for the foreseeable future?
I think Congress would have to build up an incredible amount of goodwill, which it currently doesn't have, to do something like that. You'd also have to find, and basically the Conservative Freedom Caucus would have to be neutered to pull that off, because they would be up in arms, screaming about it, attacking their fellow Republican and lawmakers as well as Democrats if they voted in favor of that. And it's just not something that's palatable right now.
Who's more against it, Republicans or Democrats, or both?
Well, I'm sure they'd all love it if they could do it, without their vote coming back to them. But I think we'd find the most objections coming from the Freedom Caucus, that part of the Republican Party that just doesn't want to govern. The whole concept is to minimize government, blow it up. And as a result, they would certainly be the most likely to be at the forefront of opposing any congressional races.
You mentioned something about book deals. Can members of Congress receive outside income while they're in office?
Yes, they can receive up to $30,000 a year in outside income, which I believe does not include book deals, which is one of their more profitable ways of making money. Members of Congress can get royalty payments on their books, whereas senators can also get advances in royalty payments. And you're seeing, one of the things I've paid a lot of attention to is looking at how these lawmakers are using campaign funds to buy their own books. And there are rules that try to prevent lawmakers from profiting on it, but they don't always work.
Can you elaborate on that? I know you covered a few lawmakers who have done this recently.
Sure. So what they're supposed to do in the House is they're supposed to, if they're buying books for their campaign, they're supposed to buy them directly from the publisher and pay costs so that there would be no profit towards or any work towards a royalty by that purchase. Now, one of the things that happens, though, is that the publishing houses know that the congressperson has the ability to do this, which certainly might make them more appealing as a potential author for that publisher. You're also seeing senators. Ted Cruz is probably the best example, who's signed, I think it's like $1.1 million advances for his next two books. He's using campaign funds apparently to buy his book, and he's using them to direct supporters to buy them at retail, which would in fact earn him royalties. I mean, there are ads on his website, or excuse me, on WinRed last I checked, that directed supporters to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and buy his book. And that was using campaign monies there in a way that would profit him personally.
Is that illegal or frowned upon, or are there any consequences for that?
It hasn't been investigated, and the FEC, I believe it was, that ruled congresspeople can put an ad on their website, for their campaign website, advertising their book. But it has to be done at minimal cost, minimal effort. If you're just tweaking a website there, it's not a big deal. But what we saw Cruz do is quite different in that it's not on his website. It's on a third-party site. It's on WinRed, and it's costing money to advertise that.